Yeah. Welcome back to another edition of the Men Who Cry podcast. Like, subscribe, review, tell a friend, to 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 tell a friend. If you not do these things, I have to assume that you have nowhere to go for Thanksgiving dinner. On today's episode, we will be talking about the number 4 butterfly moment of the last 25 seasons, a little college football madness. The debut of someone who has long been waited for and has been the spark of conspiracy theorists everywhere that you can find. But first, we have to begin with the death of a potential dynasty. Yes, the Chiefs currently are sitting at 5-5 on the season, losing to the Denver Broncos in one of the games of the year. It's a great game. Everything that you would want to see in a football game, if you are a real fan of the game. It's not just the fact that the Chiefs are 5-5. They're officially eliminated from the division. Shouldn't say officially. It's going to be really hard for them to win the division. They're currently 3 games back and essentially 4 games back since they don't have the tiebreaker over Denver, since Denver has beaten them already. The issue is not just the fact that the Chiefs currently are 5-5. It's the fact that every single team ahead of them in the wild card standings, with the Bills, the Jags, and the Chargers, have all beaten them this year. So they are not only just a game back of all those teams. Every single one of those teams I just mentioned is at least 6-4. The Bills being 7-3. They're essentially 2 games back of all of them because they lost to all of them. It's odd to see this team kind of go through this, but at the same time, it shows you that the NFL, while it does stand for not for long for a lot of players, it goes like that for teams. You know, the Chiefs are very much this dynasty of this decade. If you compare them a lot to the Patriots had stretches where they missed the playoffs. Now, one of those years was the year Brady got hurt in like the first game of the season, ironically against the Chiefs, and missed the year. That was the year Matt Castle played. And they went 10-6, but they still missed the playoffs due to tiebreakers. And there was a year, I think it was the year in between the Super Bowls. They won back-to-back, then didn't make the playoffs that season. They won the playoffs the next season, won it. That's when we went 3 out of 4 years. It's going to be tough for them to be able to get in just because of everything that I just went over. And it's been a very odd year for them because last season, they were 11-0, I believe, in one-score games. They started winning their first 11 straight games they won were 11 wins. And now this season, they haven't won a game in a one-score game. And the other thing is they haven't beat anybody with a winning record. Now, part of that is going to be a little rephrase that. They haven't beaten anybody that's currently in the playoffs. Now, that right now could change. They beat the Ravens and they have beaten the Lions. Both teams could be in the playoffs, but both teams are also not necessarily a guaranteed playoff spot. And it's just so fascinating because they're playing better, you would say, and there are aspects of the team that are doing well, but it just doesn't seem that's necessarily coming together. And I think this particularly is a moment of thinking that I don't believe that they're making the playoffs, is because normally when you give a coach like Andy Reid extra time to prepare, he's one of the best coaches off buys. I don't necessarily know his record off the top of my head, but it's truly outstanding what he does when he's given extra time. And this was a game that they pretty much needed to win. You know, if they had won this game, you would have been 6-5. You would have cut the deficit that Denver had over you. You would have cut the deficit that Denver had to you. Actually, I'm sorry, they would have been 6-4. You would have cut the deficit that Denver would have had to you, and you would have essentially been tied with all those teams that we just mentioned that in the division. So you would have essentially just been 1 game back and still would have had a chance for winning the division if you were to have done this, with Indianapolis coming up next. Now you are in a hole, and I just don't think this team is built enough to get it back. But I want to expand this out a little bit more just to talk about the Chiefs. As of right now, the playoff standings for the NFC, or for the AFC rather, are all over the place. I don't think anyone had any of these teams, frankly, making the playoffs. Or just the fact that they are actually in the places that they are currently. So as of right now, your number one seed your number one seed right now in the AFC is the Denver Broncos. They currently have a 95% chance of making the playoffs. This is according to NFL.com. Number 2 are the Patriots at a 98% chance to make the playoffs. Number 3 is the Colts at 90% to make the playoffs. And number 4 are the Steelers. They're only at a 39% chance to make the playoffs because the Ravens seem to be looking closer to catch them. But this makes me feel like I'm back in the early 2000s because these were the teams that were in the playoffs year after year after year after year after year. Even the Broncos were in the playoffs a bunch of times before the Tebow years. And you're generally looking at a situation. Now, I don't believe the Bills will miss the playoffs, but there is a chance that Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes do not make the postseason. Because as of right now, as we just posted, the Chiefs are in 9th, the Ravens are in 10th, the Texans are in 8th currently, right? And there is a world where the Bills fall out of this and the Texans replace them. And I just think that the fact that we might have a postseason where the 3, and I mean, if you even throw Burrow in there, the Bengals aren't making it. The 4 best quarterbacks in the league don't make the playoffs shows that, and I feel like it finally tells people that the quarterback, while it's the most important position, is not the only position on the team. Just because your quarterbacks are great doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make the playoffs every single year. You have a higher chance of making the playoffs every single year, but your team has to be overall good. And it's odd because if all 3 of those teams get in, though, the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Ravens, I think they might be favored against all the teams that they might play ahead of them, right? So if it's the only way the Ravens are going to get in is they probably win the division. So let's say that they're a 4 seed. Let's say the Bills are the 5 seed, and I'm just going to keep keep the Chiefs rather as the 7th seed. Is anyone going to be picking the Patriots to beat the Chiefs, even if it's in Foxborough? Right? Are you definitely going to go ahead and thinking that that Justin Herbert is going to lose to potentially Daniel Jones and the Colts? You know, we can run the Bills Ravens back from last season, even though it's going to be maybe in Baltimore this time versus it being in Buffalo. But this season has been so topsy-turvy that it's so hard to even keep it all together. And teams like the Chiefs, who are dynastic teams that are the teams of the decade, the teams of the era, there is a significant amount of people just want them to lose, not necessarily because I think people hate them for who they are. They just want to win. And at one team winning all the time breeds a lot of hate, okay? And it's going to be a fascinating piece of Mahomes and his career because I feel as if the talk about Mahomes, especially after he got that 3rd Super Bowl, that it was a guarantee almost that he was going to be able to pass Brady, right? He still has some years to go. He's only 30 years old. Brady retired at 41. So if I give him that same length of time, he's got essentially a decade to get 4 rings to tie him, right? But there was a period of time where Brady wasn't winning anything. He went 10 years without winning a Super Bowl. And what's going to happen if the team has to take like a dip? Like, is there something like, can you rebuild on the fly with them? This is probably going to be Kelsey's last year on the team. They do a good job of managing the cap. I don't necessarily think their team has so much dead weight on it, but it is just a reminder that just because you put together the team the way you think it goes with the best quarterback in the league, it does not necessarily mean that you're guaranteed to get in every single year. And I think part of the reason why that doesn't get talked about as why Brady was able to have the type of run that he was able to have is because the AFC East was terrible terrible. The Bills were awful for 19 years. The Dolphins have not been good in a long time. The Jets are the Jets. He was able to get into the tournament year by year via his division, even those years when the Patriots were not this dominant team, right? Because if you have the best and you get in, you still have a chance. But the fact that Mahomes plays in just a division with 3 Super Bowl appearing coaches, 2 of them who have won it, and the other guy who won a national championship in college, he's not going to be able to just to run off this division year after year just because the coaching's too good. The teams are too good. The quarterback play might be a little bit more up and down. It might be more similar to that of the AFC East teams, but the teams are overall significantly better than the ones that Brady had to fight to get into the postseason. So the Chiefs are definitely in a danger zone. I think that they are full on panic because those tiebreakers are really the thing that might be what keep them out overall of the actual of the overall playoffs. Next, we're going to be talking about a team that is officially out of the playoffs, yet somehow find themselves in the news because they are their team. So the Browns, they lost to the Ravens, who now got back to 500, sneakily as it's kept, back to 500, and they are looking to be in better shapes going forward. But the Browns lost the game at home. Unfortunately, their starting quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, was hurt. He got a concussion. And then in came in the savior, the first savior that was a 5th-round pick I've truly ever seen. Yes, it was Shedur Sanders' debut for the Browns. All right. So I'm going to do something that the Shedur fans or stands simply didn't let Dylan Gabriel experience. Some grace. Right? He came in off the bench. He's a rookie. This is his first ever real life NFL game. While he was terrible, the idea of him being terrible shouldn't be shocking, right? You found out later that he wasn't taking any first team reps, which I'll get to that in a second. And he didn't play well, and the team lost when he was in the game. This story about Shedur has frustrated me to levels that I don't think I've ever really gone to because it's just based off vibes. And this is where it goes to the idea of this really has nothing to do with Shedur at all. It really doesn't. He's a 5th-round pick. He went to a decent Division I school. He played well in college, but it was determined that he didn't necessarily have these great physical traits to warrant to be one of the top picks in a big draft. Dropped to the 5th round. And yet, based off nothing but I think a Mel Kiper Jr. mock draft and vibes, have people convinced themselves that this is like a superstar. I'll be honest about how I truly think how this guy was. I said it before. I don't think he's going to be very good. I think at best, he's a Teddy Bridgewater type quarterback. The defensive ends, the linebackers, the safeties, the corners in this league are too fast for you to be holding the ball. If you're going to hold the ball, you better be one of the best athletes on the field in order to make guys miss, buy yourself time, and to throw yourself out of harm's way. He does not show those traits. And the idea that like some people on the internet have wrapped around him like he's a freedom fighter is so strange and just doesn't make any sense. And now it appears, because Dylan Gabriel has a concussion, that he will start against the Vegas Raiders next Sunday. So I just want there to be a level of consistency to how he's actually evaluated. Because so far, not in college, not in the preseason, and not in a half a game per se, has he shown that he's a good enough player to warrant to being a starting quarterback. He just hasn't. And I think the concept of people almost placing their own problems onto him, thinking that he's fighting for something that he's really not, makes no sense. There's no like there, you know? Like what is this thing you think he is fighting for? He's been rich his whole life. He's not poor. He is not a freedom fighter in any kind of way. He is not the first or the last of anything. And if you want to say that he is Sanders or some of that, who in the NFL doesn't like Deion Sanders? Deion Sanders is one of the greatest football players of all time. So the amount of ridiculousness, like I'm seeing people online talking about the offensive line isn't blocking particularly for Shedur. Dog, they just got Dillon Gabriel hurt. You think they go protect better for Shedur? The consistency there just isn't there. And I find it to be so frustrating and so, it defies any level of intellect that I've at least seen. Anyway, again, I'm willing to do the thing that they are not, and that is to think, give him time. That was his first game. Do I think he's good? No. But it doesn't really matter what I think. He's got to go out there and prove it. And for everyone else who thinks that Kevin Stefanski is setting him up, one, I do not think Kevin Stefanski wants him to it's not that I don't think he wants him to succeed. I don't think he's necessarily pulling for the guy. However, Kevin Stefanski also probably doesn't want to get fired. And him losing a bunch of games or getting smacked up for the last couple of games that the Browns had this season isn't going to look good on him. That's the thing I don't get. What is he sabotaging? Himself? He wants to get fired? It is painful and frustrating that this is even a story now. And to go back to even the idea of him not getting first team reps ever is not really that crazy. The Browns had, I think, technically 6 quarterbacks at training camp. It was Shedur, Gabriel, Watson, who isn't playing, Kenny Pickett, Snoop Hundley, and Joe Flacco, right? They traded Pickett. They cut Hundley. Snoop got cut. They cut Hundley, and they still had Flacco. Then they got rid of Flacco. Watson wasn't playing. So they really just have 2 guys left at this point. They probably have a backup to the backup, who I don't even know who that is. If I had to guess, it's probably Bailey Zappi, just because he was the first non-script quarterback that came to my brain. But they're going to have one on Sunday. But the point is that where exactly, at what time was he supposed to get the reps? He was 4th on most depth charts, right? 4th. Then to 3rd. Then the backup. At best, if anything I've seen has been, maybe the backup gets 1 or 2 reps coming in. Y'all think 1 or 2 reps is going to change the way he looked? He was awful. Awful. But again, when people, we have reached a level of, I do not know if there is a difference between fandom and standom, where no matter the amount of evidence, data, backing, whatever it is, people have planted themselves in a place and have done so much mental gymnastics that they will not allow facts to enter their mind and be like, you know what? Maybe I was brought in on a lie or vibes that wasn't really there for me. You know what? It happens. People get caught up. But now he's going to play the Raiders. And I just hope that whichever way it swings, we can just be consistent and honest about what this is. Like, that's all I'm really asking for. It's really just kind of how it's going down. Sliding over to the lower level of football, we will be talking about the college football madness that is taking place. First, you had Texas A&M almost sell against South Carolina. They were down 30-3, came all the way back to win the game 31-30. And mind you, tried to sell the game in the second half. They came basically all the way back in like the third quarter, and then had a chance to go up 8 in the fourth quarter, but try to throw a fake pass or a pass to the quarterback running out, and then it was a behind the back pass. And it was a fumble, essentially. And South Carolina could have still won the game until Lenore Sellers took a couple sacks and they lost the game. Alabama lost at home to Oklahoma. One of the biggest wins in Oklahoma's most recent history. It looks like Oklahoma's going to make the playoffs. The thing about this new college football playoff that we're in, and the thing that I would argue was one of the main reasons why I wasn't all the way for a 12-team playoff is these losses used to be, devastating. Devastating. Like, truly, like, your season is over. I remember looking up maps of, like, we need this team to win, needed this team to go ahead. But now it's like they lost to Oklahoma, Alabama did, but that win was way more important for Oklahoma than it was for Alabama because that was Alabama's first conference loss. And so long as they beat a bad Auburn team that doesn't have a head coach anymore, they'll get to the SEC title game. And then once you're in there, you're probably more than likely going to make the playoff at that point, even if they have 3 losses on the season. And it just nulls a little bit of what the regular season used to be, and where the crash outs used to be sensational and there was actually valid reasons to crash out. Now it's just kind of like, you lost. There's still kind of a pathway for them to get in. And we are now in the thrills of it, and now we're really going to see what it takes for a contender to be risen from wherever we're at. There's going to be a bunch of 2-loss teams that have a real shot to win this. There's going to be some 3-loss teams in this playoff that think we have a chance to win this whole thing. And it is truly, truly going to be the madness before we get to March for this. So we'll see how it goes down, where the rankings go. The ranking show will probably be out by the time you're listening to this. So we don't know who's exactly going to be ranked where, but it's going to be some craziness that is going to follow. All right. Last part of the pod for you guys today. We are hitting up with the number 4 butterfly moment of the last 25 years. If you guys are new to the pod, first, like, subscribe, and review. But also, we have been doing, and when I say we, I really mean me. And when I say me, I mean I have been doing a countdown of the last 25 seasons, these butterfly moments. These aren't necessarily things that happened on the court per se. They could have been, but these are things that have kind of changed either a very impactful person's life in a way, in a certain way, or change the league as a whole. All right. So our number 4 for this time we have is very simply the decision. Yes, it is LeBron James deciding to leave Cleveland for the first time, head down and take his talents to Miami. It's crazy to think this was over 15 years ago now. And if you are a certain age, this doesn't need too much explaining to you why this was such an impactful moment. But if you are a bit younger, you weren't necessarily around, this never happened. It wasn't that we had great players, arguably the best players in the league, change teams, even leaving free agency. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar went to the Lakers. Shaquille O'Neal also went to the Lakers. There was even reports and times, I remember this, when Kobe, who was considered maybe one of the best players in the league, was thinking about going to the Bulls before that ended up getting nixed. But we had never had a player choose to go to a team that you could argue was his rival, right? It never ever came to be really between Dwayne Wade and LeBron James. I don't believe they ever even played in the playoffs against each other. Or if they did, maybe it was when Wade was on the Bulls. But I don't think they ever really played in the playoffs together. against each other rather, where this could have been one of the real rivalries in the Eastern Conference, right? LeBron James's team versus Dwayne Wade's team. Dwayne Wade had already won a championship in Miami as the best player on the team. LeBron was considered to be one of, if not the best player in the NBA at that point. And now they teamed up and then basically added Chris Bosh to the team. So they essentially nuked two other NBA teams because the Raptors and the Cavs went on to be one of the worst teams in the league when both of those guys had left. And I think that was truly one of the watershed moments of Twitter, was the moment where LeBron James decided to take his talents to Miami, because it was real vitriol, real hate, and you can see it all in real time. And then I would argue almost every decision that has been made since that move has been reflected back to the decision as far as NBA finances, when it talks about the second apron, if you want to talk about longer extensions, if you want to talk about guys getting contracts earlier, guys be able to get more money on their teams versus if they go to another team, the supermaxes. Everything, I think, had been tied to that moment, because it was thinking, oh, crap, owners were like, I don't want this guy who is making my franchise significant amount of money to walk away. I want to be able to keep him on my team. So definitely a watershed moment in both the NBA and just sports online, because it changed everything that you could possibly imagine how sports was covered, how it was looked at. And like I said, all the decisions in the NBA from a business aspect seem to be tied to LeBron James leaving to going to Miami in 2010. But that is all the show that we have for you guys today. Thank you guys again for listening to the Men Who Cry podcast. Like I said, like, subscribe, review, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. I'll be back with some more content with you guys later this week. Peace out.